This, ladies and gentlemen, is Mark Venturelli. He's a Brazilian game developer. Among his releases include this title called Chroma Squad, which is a tactical RPG themed after Sentai shows like Power Rangers and whatnot. Quite a charming game. And recently he's been making headlines because of what he pulled during the Brazil International Games Festival, or the BIG Festival, which took place recently from July 7th to July 10th, 2022. On Friday the 8th, Mark gave a presentation that was titled The Future of Gaming, where he was set to talk about, well, what the future holds for gaming, or so the audience thought. Turns out that Mark's intention was to pull a switcheroo and actually discuss why NFT shouldn't be a part of the future of gaming. It's quite brilliant, and it pissed off a lot of crypto companies who were sponsoring this event. So here's the PC Gamer article that covered this, whose headline reads, "Developer turns future of gaming talk into a surprise attack on conventions, NFT, and blockchain sponsors." Scrolling down here, we can find the details. Game developer Mark Venturelli received a spirited ovation at Brazil's International Games Festival on Friday after he surprised the audience for his Future of Game Design talk with a new title, Why NFTs Are a Nightmare. And he quite literally pulled a switcheroo. There's actually a video on demand version of this on YouTube archived on Mark Venturelli's channel. And you can see right here the moment where he erased the original title, The Future of Game Design, to what it actually is. And you can see the audience's reaction as well.
A palestra não é o futuro do game design. Eu fiquei com medo de vocês não aprovaram minha palestra. Se eu falasse que o verdadeiro título dela é Porque NFT é um pesadelo.
As you can see right there, the majority of this audience was on board with the title change, as it is generally agreed upon in the gaming landscape that NFTs are nothing more than scams and schemes and another monetization avenue that corporations intend to take advantage of. So far, nothing about what's been presented about NFTs from companies seem to indicate that there's good intention behind them. It's just about normalizing a potential new avenue to rake in more profits to please investors. And indeed, this festival's list of 2022 sponsors included several NFT and blockchain companies who were none too happy when they heard what was taking place at that presentation. And the event did include panels from Web3 and NFT and blockchain supporters. It included panels from those sponsors such as Web3 and the new generation of games. As for the contents of Venturelli's presentation, it's briefly described by PC Gamer here. He didn't just push back against those talks by calling NFTs a nightmare. He argued in detail that they're bad for gaming and run directly counter to his vision for the future of game design. Venturelli even released an English version of the PowerPoint slides, which you'll find right here in this Google Drive link. And if you want to check this out for yourself, I'll go ahead and link this in the descriptions below. It's quite extensive. Suffice to say that it had plenty of arguments that NFT supporters and companies don't want out there, because it ultimately reveals the truth about the predatory nature of the current implementation of NFTs. PC Gamer then reached out to Venturelli, engaged in an interview with him where he came out with a couple zingers, like this quote right here. Venturelli said the event's blockchain sponsors needed to buy their relevance because they're not relevant. These people are outsiders here. They're not important. They're just trying to buy their relevance because they have no actual influence over the future of our industry. If you just give them this space uncontested, you're just giving them exactly what they want and buying their narrative that they're relevant. I freaking love this guy already. Venturelli continues, "Yeah, it was a bit of a gimmick. I start, hey, this talk is about the future of gaming, and then I start talking about it, and I say, well, actually, fooled ya. This talk is not about the future of game design, because I start talking about all the trends that I've seen in my 15 years in the industry, and now we have new trends. Let's talk about them." That's when I scratch the name of the talk and say, Why NFTs Are a Nightmare, which I would argue is about the future of game design, because make no mistake, if NFTs are normalized in gaming, that will affect game design in the way microtransactions and loot boxes and all of these different monetization schemes have negatively impacted game design. We have seen how games introduce intentional problems so that players have to pay for the solution, be it insufferable grind or design elements that can only be rectified by paying for the thing that alleviates these issues. So him bringing this up as a topic that is relevant to the future of game design, I think is highly appropriate. It's more about a warning about what the future of game design could become if NFTs run rampant like microtransactions and loot boxes and whatnot have. And in pulling off this gimmick, he made headlines and brought more attention to his presentation, which I think is important for the future of game design. So I say well done to him. Now, Ventrelli did make sure that the event organizers knew beforehand that this was what he was going to do, as presentations for events like these obviously do require approval. Ventrelli made sure to clear it with the festival's organizers beforehand. And fortunately, the big festival organizers made no moves to censor the talk or prevent him from having his say. This is a games festival. It should not discriminate. People should be allowed to present their point of view about video games and the future of gaming. And so kudos to Big Festival for not prioritizing their sponsorships from these crypto and NFT companies over the ability for game developers to be able to just speak their minds in a respectful and constructive way. Now, it goes without saying that the Web3 sponsors saw all of this in a very different light. It wasn't a popular move among them, and here's what Ventrelli had to say about what he's heard about that situation. I've heard that the sponsors got really mad. They tried to break into the talk while I was talking, but the organization would not let them. That doesn't surprise me because the organization, not at a single point did they censor me, did they stop me from putting what I wanted on the slides. I gave them access to the slides before the talk. There was never any kind of intention on their side to shut me up or anything like that, which again, kudos to them. If there's one thing that these NFT and Web3 companies' attempts to censor Mark Ventrelli's presentation speaks to, is their insecurity and their cowardice. If they were so confident about their own argument, then they wouldn't need to do this. They'd just give their presentation and let Mark have a spotlight. But the fact that they actually made the attempt to censor his presentation shows that they're scared. Meanwhile, Mark Ventrelli exudes confidence by not pulling any of that crap and just saying his piece and then peacing out. In this interview with PC Gamer, Ventrelli also talked about this quote that Nicolas Poirard, VP of Ubisoft Strategic Innovations Lab, put out there when he said the end game of NFTs and whatnot is about giving players the opportunity to resell their items once they're finished with them or they're finished playing the game itself. Ventrelli had a great counter argument to give there. This is such a naive proposition. The expectation versus reality here is so bizarrely far apart because what's actually going to happen is that organized groups are going to operate and scale with ever diminishing margins and just push out everybody else, because that's what happens. If you play EVE Online or RuneScape or any other game that simulates economy, that's what happens. Organized groups are going to fucking crush you. What actually is going to happen is that if you just naively play a game and have fun, imagine that, right? Yeah, these days, just playing a game for fun. What a crazy idea. Then you want to sell your stuff is not going to be worth anything. It's going to be worth fractions of a cent, but what you give in return for that fraction of a cent is that you're completely powerless now. Your fantasy, your ability to be impactful in the world as an individual is gone because now it is controlled by these guys. In-game economies where real cash is involved and things like metaverse and NFT landscape, stuff that tries to turn entertainment into investment opportunities, it all ultimately simulates real life. They're micro versions of real life economy where, indeed, the rich, powerful, and organized will crush you unless you somehow rise through that ladder, which is incredibly difficult to do when the game is rigged. These are all aspects that will very much apply to the micro version of that, and that's what so many companies are counting on, the ability to exploit you both in the physical realm and in the virtual realm. Going back to the topic of the Big Festival, something you may not know about is that the fact that Big Festival was going to be sponsored by blockchain companies was something that was brought up before the event, and plenty of people were not happy about this. Attendees were considering boycotting. Indie designers in Brazil scene were in favor of boycotting Big in response, but Ventrelli obviously disagreed and took a different approach. Instead of retreating, let's be on the offensive. Let's go there and give our own presentation to counter against their arguments. Here's how Ventrelli aptly put it. If we boycott it and don't go to it, we're conceding defeat pretty much. We're just saying we forfeit. We cannot do this. We need to do the opposite. In fact, I do not think that the event organization is pro-crypto, pro-NFT. I know them personally. I serve as an advisor on the board of ABR Games, the Association of Brazilian Game Developers Companies. My opinion against crypto and NFT is not the majority of ABR Games, but it's important that I represent this opinion over there. In the same way, it's important that we go and we take up the space that is offered to us, not only to me, but to many people in the indie scene in Brazil. I was on the side of, hey, let's contest this. Let's use the space. Let's voice our opinion against it. Otherwise, the blockchain companies are going to be monologuing over there. Instead of just letting them have the spotlight on a platform, let's also get on that platform and have this discussion. Let's actually have this back and forth where we're also present and making our case against NFTs as NFT companies continue to try to push for the normalization of what is very much a giant Ponzi scheme in its current state. Ventrelli also briefly talked about the contents of the BIG's sponsors' talks about supporting NFTs. They were spouting their shit basically on the main stage, just saying, hey, crypto games are super cool, they're going to be awesome, just people don't understand, or the previous generation of crypto games gave it a bad reputation, but a new generation that is coming up is going to be awesome. The usual talking points that are extremely vague in their promises, because when asked for specific details on how NFTs and NFT games and metaverse will actually benefit us as paying customers, they have no genuine justification or response to give. They just spat out the same vague crap that tries to evade the question, not actually directly confront it. Ventrelli continues, I don't feel like I've hurt Big by talking shit about NFTs. And here's a great quote, because Big does not need these guys. It's the other way around. NFT and metaverse companies are the ones in the position who need to win us over. They're the ones who need to make that strong case that makes us go, okay, maybe this is worth considering. They're the ones who need the stage more than the stages need them, because events like Big, they're about gaming and gaming. It's not about NFTs and metaverse and all these things. There are plenty of other supporters out there who they can get who are more about what gaming actually represents. Ventrelli finally concludes with, if we don't take up some spaces and we let these kinds of people take these spaces, suddenly they're dictating what's the future. They're dictating the conversation. Suddenly they're taking the investment so that they are building our next big projects. That's when it starts to get really dangerous, because it can jeopardize our future as an industry, in my opinion, because I don't feel like these things have long legs. I feel like they might be successful in the short term, but they're going to fall on the long term for sure. I couldn't agree more. Ladies and gentlemen, not all heroes wear capes. Love everything he had to say. Love that he went about this the way he did. I love the way he just ambushed NFT sponsors like this. I love that the big festival let this thing happen, because ultimately he was just sharing his take in a critical way, where he's just offering his own take through his own presentation, not trying to censor what NFT bros and companies and Web3 bros and companies are trying to promote. Let them make their points, let folks like Ventrelli make his points, and ultimately people will decide based on who makes the better argument. And generally it is widely agreed upon that companies supporting NFTs and Web3 and crypto have made some really terrible arguments. If you can even call them that, they're almost non-arguments. They're just vague phrases and vague promises thrown out there that don't give us any idea as to how this will pave the road for a better future, how this wild, wild west of a minefield won't only pave the road for people to get scammed and only for a select few at the top of the pyramid to benefit from all of this through what is essentially exploitation. So that's kind of everything you need to know about this story. I wanted to give Ventrelli a big shout out because of his brazenness and his active attempt to fight back against the normalization of NFTs. And I want to shout out his game, his studio, Behold Studios. I'm going to throw him a few bucks. Buy this game while it's 50% off. Also, this game looks cool. Never heard of it until now, but I'm certainly eager to check it out. And as I've said many times before, as far as I'm concerned, bad news for NFTs is the best kind of news. That's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Ventrelli's approach, his presentation, and the way these Web3 NFT crypto companies reacted and responded to his presentation when it turned out to be an ambush arguing against NFTs being normalized in gaming. Share your thoughts below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.